Game of the day today is Resident Evil 6, and I've said before that Game of the Day is not necessarily a good game, it's just a game I want to talk about, and I have a lot to unpack about Resident Evil 6. Let's get the big question out of the way. Is it a fun game? Not necessarily. But is there fun to be had in the game? Absolutely. If you are a fan of Resident Evil, if you're a fan of these characters, I think that there is a lot to enjoy about Resident Evil 6 if you let yourself have fun and you can put aside a lot of very valid criticisms. If you're not already a fan of this franchise, I don't really think there's anything here for you. You can 100% skip this, and you probably already did. But it is innately cool to see Leon and Chris cross paths in a game for the first time and have some really cool character moments, especially with characters that were introduced a long time ago that you're now seeing how the years have changed them, where they're at now. And it's just interesting to see them come back into the franchise. There's a lot of legacy plays here, and it kind of feels like in some ways it might be setting up the next generation of Resident Evil characters. Who knows if they'll ever end up paying any of that stuff off, but it is there. There's also some crazy bombastic moments in this that are just innately cool. Again, especially if you're a fan of these characters, seeing them do some of this stuff is just like really dope. Ridiculous, yes, but undeniably cool. But it's not a good video game, and the reviews were correct about the quality of this game, but the reason everyone says for why this game is bad isn't actually why I think it's bad. It's not bad because it's more actiony. To be honest, Resident Evil games have been actiony since 4. 4 is not really a survival horror game. And while 6 is definitely taking things to the most extreme level, I don't think that the action elements are what makes it a bad game. What makes it a bad game is the fact that it's flawed on every design level. It is an innately poorly designed game. The levels are just mostly generic hallways and rooms that you just run through and has no creativity. If a level design student turned this in as their final project, like, you would fail that student. That's how bad it is. The weapons have zero impact. They feel like you're firing BB guns, and all of them feel equally bad to fire and have no distinct differences in the way that they feel to use. And what's crazy is this is not true for older Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 5 is a much better video game than Resident Evil 6. I do not know what happened. The scenario design just feels like it was done by a completely different, unexperienced team. Resident Evil's been doing this thing for a while where it likes to put you in a room and then you have to like defend yourself in the room as zombies come in and you push bookshelves and stuff like that. Resident Evil 4 had it, Resident Evil 5 had it, Resident Evil 6 has it, and it is just so much worse feeling than those other two much older games. In fact, everything about Resident Evil 5 was better. The level design, the graphics, it looked better. The way the weapons felt to fire, the way the inventory is done, everything was better in these much older games. And I would love a documentary explaining what exactly happened to Resident Evil 6, because I'm very, very curious. What's insane too is, as far as sales and popularity of the franchise, I still think that this was the peak of the franchise. It sold 4.5 million units on the first day. Resident Evil has been good for an entire generation again, and it is still not hitting those numbers. While I was certainly tired of the game by the 4th campaign, I do appreciate that each character has unique environments to them, and there's very little crossover. And believe it or not, I'm actually playing through it again with a friend, and it's a lot more fun in co-op, but not because the game is necessarily better in co-op. It's just a lot easier, and you have a friend to like joke around with through the absurdity. I am glad I played through this game, but I'm super happy I didn't play it at launch. I think it is more interesting as a retrospective look at just kind of where Resident Evil was in 2012, and kind of video games in general. 2012 was a strange time for games.